Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the In the Pocket podcast. I'm Max Sturm, joined alongside Logan Martin. No Xander Cook today. He is still in Massachusetts, coming off of that Patriots and Steelers game that you guys both went to, taking a little bit more of an extended leave. We're happy for you, Xander. We'll see you back on Thursday where we do predictions of week 4. But week 3 is in the books. We had a crazy, crazy week. In the NFL this week. A lot to talk about, so much to talk about in this game. But Logan, I want to start with you. How was it going down to Gillette and watching that game?
No, the atmosphere is great. It was a great time. Even just like after the game, just hanging out around Gillette Stadium, and enjoying the food, and just thinking about how good the day was. Even though we took an L, I think we played better than them. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, Foxborough, and really that Gillette Stadium area. Robert Kraft has done such a good job of making that a nice touristy area, not only for the fans that are there all the time, but for people that come and visit.
Right.
So that's really cool. Where'd you sit at the stadium that day?
Section 127. So I was on the Steelers sideline. So like if you're watching the CBS broadcast, I was like where the camera was. So like I was back to them. So you wouldn't
Okay,
have
so
saw
up a
me on
little bit in the
TV.
nosebleeds.
No, not in the nosebleeds. I was in the lower sections, but I was on the Steelers sideline, towards the right end zone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that's sick. Well, awesome that you got to have that experience. I'll be making a trip down to Gillette on the 14th of December to watch Buffalo take them on in a game that Josh Allen might not even play if things go the way that I hope they do. We'll see. Um, anyway, we're going to get into week 3 here and starting off with that Thursday night football game between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Not gonna lie to you, Logan. I really thought that this was a game that Buffalo should have uh, pretty easy handedly. I think they should have been able to take this game and not have to worry about losing the entire time. But give credit to Mike McDaniel and the rest of that Dolphins team. They really gave Josh Allen and this Bills team a good fight. Not necessarily from a defensive perspective, but they were able to score on a lot of their drives. They did finish with 21 points. Buffalo ultimately comes away with the 10-point win. So Xander was right about the spread, man. He was the closest one. So props to him again for that. But just taking a look at a few of the stats here, Tua goes for, let's see, 22 of 34 for 146, 2 touchdowns. And of course, he throws that interception, but we'll get a little bit more into the timing of that later on. Devon Achane had a quiet game, but came up big on third downs and such. 12 carries, 62 yards. You saw Ollie Gordon, who still didn't really have the stats, but he also came up big on third downs. He reminds me a lot of Ty Johnson as a Bills fan, just being that guy that you go to on those got to get to the chains plays. He's a rookie and he's been impressive so far. Tyreek Hill finally breaks that slump of touchdowns and gets one here. Jalen Waddle also does to end the half. And then on the Bills side of things, it was just another day at the Ralph, as we call it, but Highmark Stadium for Josh Allen, 22 of 28. Very good completion percentage. He was smart with the ball all day. 213 yards, 3 scores, and James Cook ran for one as well. Dalton Kincaid, Shakir, and Jackson Hawes, the rookie tight end, each getting into the end zone on or in this game. Um, so Logan, before I hand it to you, I just think as a Bills fan, I'm happy with the win. We're 3-0. But it came down to this defense once again coming away with a huge turnover when it mattered. They gave up yards all night. And then finally, in the fourth quarter, when they were facing the game being tied, if Miami goes down and scores, Terrell Bernard comes away with an interception and takes it a few yards back down the field, setting up the game winning score. And they ultimately go on to win. So, Logan, I'm sure you watched the game. What were your initial thoughts, both from the Dolphins and the Bills?
Yeah, man, that Bernard interception must have been a nice deep breath, huh?
Oh yeah,
Watching
man. I
that
was
live.
I was so I was at work too, man. That was the worst part.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you said it. Xander predicted it right. It was very frustrating watching that game, knowing that I'm sure you're in the same boat as me, knowing that we picked the Buffalo Bills to cover the spread and win that game, thinking it would be 17, 20 point blowout, just win comfortably. It's frustrating seeing that Tua is doing the same thing he's always done in Miami, just dink and dunk offense within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Ton of check downs. I mean, 22 for 34 for 114 yards. You can't tell me he's throwing the ball downfield consistently with those kinds of numbers. It's frustrating. And if I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, I'm wondering when they're getting rid of my head coach, the GM, and our starting quarterback. I think it's time. It's time to just strip this whole team down and just restart it because Tua was not the answer, and it's proven obvious.
Yeah, so he signed a 4-year, $212 million
Right.
contract in July of 2024. So averaging right about $53 million per year.
Just a
Um,
little bit,
it,
just a
it,
little bit
it's
of
a little
money.
bit excessive. And you know what? I would have more so understood it if they signed him after that. Was it 2023 that Tyreek Hill had that crazy year? Yeah. I really don't understand signing him to
Right.
that much after the last 2 years. Or I guess after last year, he wasn't sensational in that one either. And then obviously last year was out with injury for a while and came back. It was not very good. He's You're right. He's just not throwing it down the field. He's too conservative. It's okay to have a conservative quarterback that doesn't put the ball in harm's way every time, but he's so conservative that he becomes a problem and he overthinks his routes and his passing and he throws it to the opposite team all the time. I mean, in
Right.
every game he's had an interception so far. And in that Indianapolis game, he had multiple. So I just think that yes, he is a problem, but you're kind of locked in with him for at least next year.
Right.
I don't know what the buyout is or what the guaranteed money was 167 million. So you're really locked into it for 3 years.
Yeah,
If
and
you
that's
want
the thing. That's the thing that sucks about the business side of things. Head coaches and GMs trying to cover up the multi-million-dollar contract they're offering these players that just don't live up to what they're getting paid.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's one of three things to his performance and how he's playing is one of three things I have a problem with on this Dolphins team. The other two, just watching the game live on TV, the body language on the sideline, whether it's Mike McDaniel or the players behind him, body language is horrible. You can tell whether they lost respect for Coach McDaniel or something's off in the locker room. And the other problem I have is how are you this bad with this many star players? How are you bad with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, and Devon A. Chain, Ollie Gordon? Like think of those skill guys. Like that's a top 10. If we're talking 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that's a top 10 offense. And now it's like this team sucks. And that's the thing that sucks about it because I'm watching Devon A. Chain tear it up on TV. I think he's a great running back, and it feels like Ollie Gordon's kind of surpassing him in touches. It seems like that's what the direction they want to head in. It's
Yeah,
frustrating.
and honestly, outside of Tyreek Hill, which I still think Tyreek Hill is a fantastic wide receiver, but he's getting up there in age. Um, this offense on paper still should be top five. I want to know what happened in 2 years that made this team so much worse than they are. I understand their defense is absolutely cooked. They are down. I think who was it? I think Al Michaels said it was 5 or 6 corners that they're down on their depth chart from injury. And I totally understand that. I understand that's a problem. You don't have Jalen Ramsey anymore. So I understand the defensive side of things. But this offense has been the reason that they haven't been able to compete. They can stay
Right.
in these games. Yes, the defense gives up 31 points to Josh Allen. Everyone gives up 30 points to the Buffalo Bills
They
offense.
have this
That's
year,
how it is.
every
That's
game.
just
Yeah.
how it is. But this offense 2 years ago was putting up 40 points a game around this time or in 2023. So I I fail to understand how the team regresses this much with the same head coach, the same core group of guys playing on the offensive side of the ball. Jalen Waddle is in his prime right now and is playing better than Tyreek Hill. Devon Achane has matured as a player, and I don't think he got worse. I think that he's just not getting the right plays called for him. So whether it's
Right.
a Tyreek Hill problem or a Mike McDaniel problem, it's a problem, and they need to
Yeah.
figure that out. You got anything else on them?
Yeah, quick thing. Devon A. Chain, it's not sustainable what they were doing with him in the offense, just throwing it to him consistently, him getting more touches than Tyreek Hill, it seemed like in the
Mm-hmm.
last 10 games. And we look at the schedule, the first three games for the Dolphins, they get stunned in Indianapolis to a very good Colts team, and then they have a chance to, win at home against the Patriots, which they could have got away with easily. I thought the Patriots were going to lose that game after that
too.
special teams touchdown, and then the Patriots answered. They had a chance, and then you have a chance against the Bills, the best team or a top two team in the NFL, to get a W. You are in prime position. And you choke, so it's disappointing. There's no excuses. They had opportunities to set themselves up with schedule that shows versus Jets at Panthers. So, yeah.
Yeah. So going forward, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Mike McDaniel situation. I honestly think if they get blown out or lose these next 2 games, 3 games, you got to start having serious conversations. If not, already fire the guy.
Right.
So let's go forward to another game that I wouldn't say it was a shock to me because I had picked them to win, but the Minnesota Vikings going and winning handedly 48-10 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Logan, I know you weren't able to actually watch this game because you were at the Patriots game, but man, did Carson Wentz have a good day? Jordan Mason have a good day? And Jake Browning had a shit day. It was very, very hard to watch. Every time it came up on Red Zone, I was just so uninterested because it was so one-sided. But the real story for this team in the Minnesota Vikings was their defense. I'm trying to remember his name. I'm blanking on it. But
Rogers.
yeah, Rogers, is it Isaiah Rogers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isaiah Rogers with a long pick six return for the touchdown and a long forced fumble and fumble recovery for a touchdown. I think fantasy owners with the Minnesota Vikings defense ended up with like 30 points from them. Absolutely insane. But the real issue here with the Cincinnati Bengals is the fact that they do not have their starting quarterback in Joe Burrow. We already knew how bad their defense was and is going to continue to be for the rest of the year because of all the money that they spent on wide receivers, Joe Burrow and Trey Hendrickson. But Jake Browning looked somewhat promising last week, but then comes out and is barely able to put up 10 points on the board, throwing 2 interceptions, less than 150 yards, and had 1 touchdown, which I believe came a little bit later. But Drew Sample was the one who was able to catch that one, and I can't say I've ever heard of Drew Sample. So
Yeah.
they're really they're struggling out there. Jamar Chase, 5 catches for 50 yards. That's a very light day for him. I don't really have much more to say about this except I knew the Bengals were going to lose, but I really did not think it was going to be this bad, especially to a backup quarterback.
Yeah, I guess we just should have saw this coming. We're talking about a horrible Bengals defense that didn't improve other than re-signing Hendrickson, and then they lose their best player, that's getting the most money. So it's a frustrating loss for them to lose Joe Burrow, and I think we should have predicted that would just just go downhill from there. So
Yeah.
that it's proven to be huge. They were 2-0 going into this. It's not like they were 1-1 or 0-2. They were 2-0, and let's be real, they had opportunity in the first half to keep this close, but ultimately offensive mistakes just let this get away, and the Minnesota defense just capitalized, and they ran away with it, and it was never close.
Yeah, and I really don't believe that the Bengals win very many more games this year just based on one, their defense, but two, not having Joe Burrow for 3 months, you're already out of
So,
contention in
and
my
if you're Joe Burrow, are you sitting out for the rest of the season?
I if
Are you
you're out of
gauging these
playoff
games?
contention, absolutely.
Right, right.
I would like to talk about the Texans and Jaguars game. Jaguars come away with a 7-point win in this one. Jaguars team looking pretty good. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a great day. He threw 222 yards and an interception, but the rushing game kind of helped out for it down in the red zone with Travis Etienne and is it Tootin? How do you
Yep.
say his name? Tutton?
Tootin,
Tootin? Yeah.
Tootin. Yep.
Each scoring a touchdown.
Yep.
And Brenton Strange with 61 yards led the team. Brian Thomas very close with 55. But again, I think this says more about the losing team in this case. The Houston Texans are in deep shit. They
Yeah, yeah,
horrible.
yeah,
The defense is the best part of their game right now, and it's not that good. CJ Stroud, 204 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Nick Chubb doesn't even break 40 yards. Nico Collins does go for 104 yards and a touchdown. But really, what other bright spot of this offense is there? There is none. This team is 0-3. I would have never expected this to happen. And I think they're in some serious trouble.
yeah. I feel like we never expected this because of the defense. I feel like that's the one spot, the bright spot we had all the Texans going into this 2025 season. The offense has been horrible, man. There's no run game, and I think that's a huge reason why we seen what we've seen from CJ Stroud in this offense. And it's not like he's missing throws. Like obviously he's made bad decisions and he's thrown picks, but if you're watching the games live, I had opportunity to watch most of this game on highlights coming back from Massachusetts. The receivers aren't getting open.
Mm-mm.
And I don't know what you want from Nico Collins, who's probably going to get double teamed every time he sees a defense, and then Dalton Schultz, Christian Kurtz, and Xavier Hutchinson. Like you're talking about a tight end and two large receivers. Christian Kirk being a deep threat who hasn't played consistently in a few years. Like it's just there's no offensive firepower on this offense for weapons for CJ Stroud to get the ball to, and there's no run game to help the pass game. And not to mention the offensive line is still very underwhelming. So it's just very frustrating, especially knowing how good this defense is.
Yeah, and um they will get Nick Chubb, or sorry, not Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon back, or at least he's eligible to come back in week 5 off of the IR. And hopefully that will help them out a bit. Hopefully he can come back and be the player that he has been. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, like whether it's injuries or just who they've gotten rid of, it's been really hard for these receivers to get open. Obviously, Tank Dell is fighting an injury that he suffered at the end of last season and probably won't be back until at least the mid-season and probably later with that ACL tear. And then Nico Collins, he deals with injuries, little injuries all the time too, that kind of limit his game. But when you're the only guy out there, you're right. They're going to double team you every time. Dalton Schultz is a threat underneath, but you save the slot corner for that, the nickel corner, and he can take care of that. Um, this team's in a lot of trouble because you're right. Their offensive weapons are not helping them at all. They just
and
don't have anybody for CJ Stroud to get the ball to. And when they do, CJ doesn't look good doing it. And that's something I would be concerned about too. Another thing that kind of went through my head just now when we were talking about this in the offseason in the front office. If you know that Tank Dell is injured and probably going to be out the majority of the year, you have Nico Collins, who you should expect is going to receive so much attention because he is a very good wide receiver. And you don't really have any other outstanding wide receivers. You have Christian Kirk, but he's not outstanding.
right.
Why would you not put Stephon Diggs on another 1 year deal?
Right. Or trade that second round pick you spent on Jaden Higgins or the third round pick you spent on Jalen Noel and trade it for a vet like Stephon Diggs or not Stephon Diggs because you can't you could have signed him, but
Trade for a guy who can bring similar value. Like you really just needed to go out and get a veteran wide receiver who can help take attention off of Nico Collins, um, and also be a reliable pass catcher when he does receive a lot of the attention. And I think Stephon Diggs, even coming off of the injury, we've already seen him. He's back for New England. They haven't used him much.
right.
I think with his work ethic and the way that he prides himself in his game, he could have helped that Texans offense a lot more this year than he would have last year, or
Right.
he did last year. Anyway, a very disappointing start to the seasons for the Texans and Texans fans. I'm sorry. This might be a rough year for you guys. Going forward, real quickly, just want to talk about the Colts. Once again, we see them come away with a huge win, as we kind of expected. I expected them to come away with this. Xander, sorry, your inboard 400-yard prediction was incorrect. But just looking at it, Daniel Jones once again throws for over 200 yards and a touchdown, doesn't throw an interception. Jonathan Taylor with 102 yards,
Wow.
over 100 yards for the second week in a row, and add on 3 touchdowns for that. Of course, he had the long 46-yard touchdown. I believe maybe in the second or third quarter. I don't remember exactly when it was, but he's been outstanding. He looks every bit of what he used to be back in the 2020 season. Michael Pittman, 73 yards and a score. This team just seems so well rounded, and it's incredible because we came into this season not expecting anything from the Colts.
Yeah, I mean they're a borderline playoff team, and if you're calling them a playoff team, you're probably a little crazy. Uh, but th this Titans defense is no ho-hum defense. So for them to come into Tennessee and just score 41 points on this Titans D is it's saying something. It's saying this Colts team's legit. And their team we're gonna have to watch out for the rest of the season. They're gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah, they really are going to be a fun team to watch. It's so funny. 2 years in a row, we see the Giants let go of Saquon Barkley. Obviously, they knew what kind of talent they had in Barkley, but the injuries were too much for them. They didn't want to have to deal with it. So they let him go. He goes to the Eagles, has a 200 or 2,000 yard season, and wins the Super Bowl this year. And it might be a little early, but you've got Daniel Jones, who was released by the Giants last year, spent the rest of that season working with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, and now he looks not like a superstar. I'm not going there yet, but he looks like a very, very competent and comfortable quarterback right now. And I think that says a lot about Kevin O'Connell and how he's able to develop quarterbacks. We've seen it time and time again
All right.
with Sam Darnold. We saw Kirk Cousins obviously had a very strong end to his career up there with the Vikings.
And I agree with what you're saying. I think Carson Wentz was the final quarterback where I'm like, okay, if he can come out here and have a good game, KOC has some, he's a quarterback whisperer, man.
It's something, man. Like you don't have guys who come into your team and your system just perform the way they do. And listen, I understand what's around him: Justin Jefferson, eventually Jordan Addison, but not yet. Um, you've got Aaron Jones in the backfield. You have a very stout offensive line. You are given the materials that you need, but something about him has translated these quarterbacks to other places as well. With the exception of the first week, Sam Darnold has played very well so far with Seattle. And it's just I really don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it. And now Dan
Right.
Jones out here slinging the
And
ball.
and and another thing with the Colts, uh, Kevin's Shane Steichen. Sorry, I almost said Kevin Stefanski. Shane Steichen was on the hot seat before this year,
Oh yeah, yes he was.
proving him wrong, man.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the rest of this Colts season goes. Because I know Xander talked about them being comparable to the 2024 Saints, where they come out and they score 40 points in the first 2 games.
That's the rumor going around. Yeah, no,
They
that
don't look like that
different
kind of
roster,
team, man. They
different
don't look
roster,
like
man.
that kind of team.
This offensive line's really, really underrated.
Yeah, in that secondary too. The
Yeah,
secondary
yeah,
for the
they're
Colts is
deep,
incredible.
deep.
Um, Going forward, just gonna recap the score of this one. I don't think there's really much to talk about. Commanders go in and beat the Raiders 41-24, even with a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota. And then we start getting into the craziness here. Rams at Eagles. I picked the Rams in this game, and man, I'm so upset with the outcome of this game. Not that I thought that the Eagles would get blown out, because I didn't, but the Rams had a 26-7 lead in the third quarter, and they give it up, and they go scoreless in that last quarter and a half. And you see the Eagles just time and time again, and Nick Sirianni being able to adjust in the second half. It's incredible that he's able to do this so many times over and over again. But then this game comes down to, and they stopped Matt Stafford too. It wasn't just the offensive side. The defense really figured it out and was able to stop this Rams offense. But then the Rams have a chance to win the game. They get in field goal position. The first time that the kicker goes out there in the fourth quarter, he has it blocked. Now game's on the line. He kicks it, and it gets blocked again and ran back for a touchdown, which breaks so many people's hearts who were betting on the spread.
Mhm.
The final second scoring a touchdown on a blocked kick.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
this Eagles team is just resilient.
Yeah, no, they are, and that block kick was amazing. Just putting Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter right side by side and just stuffing the gap on a block field goal was just like,
Dude, Jordan Davis ran 18 miles an hour on that run back.
that's ridiculous. And
Eighteen.
he shed some weight coming in the season because he saw how dominant Jalen Carter was when he shed some weight. So Jordan Davis wanted to follow in his footsteps. Shed like 25 pounds coming in this year, and you could tell based on like you said, he was cooking, man. He's cooking. But about this Eagles offense, man, they've been so frustrating. And I don't know if you remember the text I sent you guys before the game. I said
Yeah, I do remember.
I think this is going to be the game where the Eagles offense finally opens up the playbook because it's been so ho-hum. And if you've been watching the offense for the last 2 weeks, it's like been 6 to 8 plays, and it's just different variations and different formations, just so it looks different. You know, the same outside zone could be running single back, it could be running strong formation or I formation. It could be running different ways with different motions and that kind of stuff. So they were very simple in the first couple weeks in their offense. And I was waiting to see this offense opened up. And I think that wake up call was them trailing by so much in this Rams game to the fact where there had to have been a conversation on the sideline where maybe it was Jalen Hurts or maybe it was Sirianni up talking to the OC. But like, we got to be aggressive. We got to push the ball downfield. You know, 4 for 8 isn't going to cut it going into halftime, especially when you're losing now and you've been doing this for the last 2 weeks. So we have to get the pass game going. They finally did it. Proved AJ Brown is still AJ Brown.
Thank
Don't know
God, man. I
why they.
needed that in my fantasy league, bro.
Oh my goodness, should have been doing this from day one. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles go back to what they did in the first 2 weeks for certain games in their season. I feel like they've proven they can do what they did in the first 2 weeks. So when they face a team like, I don't know, I'm not looking at their schedule. If they face a team like Carolina, if they face a team like maybe the Raiders towards the tail end of the season, or a team like a terrible team. You know what I mean?
Like a
They
team
could
that they,
just
they feel like they're gonna come through.
right, right. They could play to win and just be simple and just run behind their offensive line and make Saquon get 20, 25 touches and throw the ball on third down when they need to. And that's just how the Eagles are going to be. But I think this is their wake up call. If they're going to be playing teams like the Rams, they can't wait until the second half to turn on the pass game. It's got to be from the start. So, what that leads me to ultimately believe is they can't go back to what they just did in the last 2 weeks. They have to stay passing the football. They have to stay consistent. They can't get rusty because when it comes playoff time and they just roll over every team in the regular season, it's going to be a lot of what we saw the Patriots in '07 when they went undefeated and then lost in the playoffs. So, you know, you can't get stunned. You gotta throw the ball. So now the Patriots threw the ball to Randy Moss. You know, so
Yeah, shout out to GOAT. We're
they
each
they
Hall of Famers
they
tonight.
fed Randy the Rock. Yeah, yeah. They fed Randy the Rock. But you know what I mean? Like you get stunned sometimes when you're very very good, and that sucks. And in what better way to get stunned by not passing the ball in the first 2 weeks of the season and just hoping your run game could just carry you to every victory.
Yeah, and so obviously AJ Brown comes out, has a good game. Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, each catching a score as well. Jalen Hurts, man, there's a lot of people talking down on his name still, even after this game. But he goes 21 of 32, 226 yards and 3 scores, plus another one on the ground with that tush push. The only complaint have about this Eagles offense is the just from like a game perspective. I hate watching the tush push, man, especially now that they've really honed in on looking to see if they're offside or if there's a false
Paul
start
starting.
on it.
Yeah, last week that was a huge issue.
It was a huge issue versus the Chiefs, and it happened twice again on that first drive.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It did. So the first one was very obvious. I'm not sure who it was, but they jumped off sides. He went way before, and then on the touchdown as well. And the
Wow.
refs basically said that there's no way to tell if somebody jumps, which I think it's a. I think.
I do agree with you, but at the same time, like when you slow down that replay, it's slowly to the point, oh, it's the millisecond. So like you can really slow down the replay booth, but like if you're watching it, man, there's no way you can't see it if you're like paying attention. Like, okay, I'm gonna be watching to see if the offensive line gets out like a half second before. Like it's got to be a little bit obvious, but at the same time, how compact they are, how low they are, bunched up. Like I can see how it could be hard to see
Oh,
sometimes,
it's
but
definitely hard to see, but I just think there
it's a
really needs to be
stupid
a
play.
system in place to be able to tell.
Do you remember the coach that was against the tush push the most? Who's Sean McVay?
Sean McVay, yeah, Sean
Yeah.
McDermott was too, which is hilarious because the Bills run it on 4th and 1 every time too.
Right, right.
Um, But regardless, Eagles team continues to impress, very resilient. They will win the games that they're supposed to win, and they will also win the games that could be competitive, such as this one versus the Rams. So the Rams go to 2-1. I think they still have a very bright season ahead of them. We'll see how this goes for the rest of these teams if the Eagles keep their foot on the gas. Uh, I don't even want to talk about Falcons Panthers because this is a ridiculous game.
One stat. I got one stat, and I don't even want to talk about him either, man. I'm on the same page with you. Michael Penix Jr., zero passes downfield 20 yards or more
Wow.
within the numbers. All of his passes have been outside of the numbers to the sideline. So no passes down the middle of the field. So if you're defensive coordinator watching the tape, if I knew that, how do you not expect the Panthers to do what they did on defense?
Yeah, and the Falcons rather just a really poor performance offensively and defensively. Michael Penix Jr. throws 2 interceptions, one of those being a pick six. And then the Panthers, Bryce Young didn't really have a stellar game either. He really didn't. Uh, I'm honestly not sure how this game was a 30-0 game,
And it
but
was only because of what I said. I promise you. Like I feel like that just turns the whole game around. You're literally as a defensive coordinator just thinking, I'm just gonna run two high shell and run cover two where I have a corner in the flat and two safeties over the top outside of the numbers in the deep half. Like that, knowing that Michael Penix Jr. is not going to throw across the middle of the field, that's the easiest throw for a quarterback to make, right in front of you, across the middle of the field. Easiest throw. You're talking Michael Penix. That's why Michael Penix Jr. has so much arm talent because you're watching a lefty, which automatically makes it look even better. You're watching a lefty sling it way more than he has to because he has to throw it outside the numbers every time towards the sideline. So it looks like it has way more velocity, way more zip. The ball's a tighter spiral, and it has to be put in a way more certain spot than it does across the middle of the field, and that's why it looks so much better.
yeah, he they are really hurting my prediction of them winning the South with a or being in contention for the South with 11 wins on the season. Not sure that's going to happen anymore, especially if Penix continues to play this way. They did say that he will start the next game and that Kirk Cousins is not going to get a
Should
chance
be.
to be the starter. And honestly, I think he's going to get traded here soon too. Um, all right, let's talk about the Steelers and Patriots a little bit. I'm going to let you start this one because you were actually there.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating, man. If you're a Steelers fan coming out of it though, you're a little more concerned than you are a Patriots fan. I feel like Patriots fans were left with a little bit of hope that the offense was moving the ball. The pass game looked good. Josh McDaniels put Drake May in a position where he had to throw 5, 6, 7 yards down the field when he had to. It wasn't like 1st and 10, I'm going to throw it 20 yards down the field in double coverage because nothing else is open. I have a hitch route right in front of my face, and if I don't have that, I have a check down to a running back who can catch the ball and get some yak. So I think Josh McDaniels really controlled the offense well, but the turnovers killed us, man. Four
Oh,
turnovers in a pick. And I'm sitting in the end zone. It's literally in the end zone. I'm right in front of. It's right in front of me happening, and my head is in my hands because a fumble at the one after Ramondre Ari fumbled, and then right before the half, Drake May gets hammered, and then the next play throws a pick. And if you watch the route, I'm watching it. He's wide open. There's just no loft on the ball. It's just zipped, and that's why it was right at him. If you put a little touch on it, he's wide open. So just frustrating. We left a lot of points on the board. Played better than the Steelers. Rodgers didn't have to do shit. Our defense looked great. I feel like a lot of our team statistics defensively are going to be a little bit skewed because of that performance. We controlled the ball. We had a lot of time of possession, so just frustrating. We should have won the game. But as a Patriots fan, I'm still hopeful, but as a Steelers
Yeah,
fan, you got to be a
yeah,
little concerned.
and I think for good reason. And I think a part of it, your defense needs Gonzo back. They really do need Gonzo back.
Yeah,
Um, but outside of that, I think Drake May needs some more reliable targets or guys that
I
are able to
agree.
get
It's
open
time
a
to
little
move
bit better.
on. Efton
Like
Chisholm
when Hunter Henry and Ramondre Stevenson are your top receivers,
every game.
that's a problem.
Every
That's
game.
a huge problem. Um, Ramondre Stevenson should be cut for what he did on Sunday. He's
Yeah, man,
he's
that's
really had a rough go of things the last 2 years.
yeah.
Um, I think that his time in New England is running out. He's had fumble problems in the past. There's you're a guy who has problems in the NFL if there's Instagram pages that are
Dedicated to it.
like Ramondre Stevenson lover. Like
Yeah.
that something's up. Uh,
Right.
because
We
there's always that one guy that's gonna go to war and defend you. But
and and watching it live too, you should have saw the amount of times like third down because when the Steelers were really moving the ball in the first half, the amount of times on defense we ran man coverage on third and long, and if I had hair, I'd be pulling my hair out of my scalp because it was just frustrating to watch. Like why can't we just go to zone and make Aaron Rodgers dance around in the pocket and have to fit a window or something? It was just way too easy. They were creating separation, and eventually in the second half, we went to zone, not back to it, but we went to zone coverage on third and long, and it started working. But like you said, we need Gonzo back.
yeah, absolutely. You need Gonzo. He's going to lock down the number one wide receiver for each of the teams that they face. And hopefully you guys will have him back this week. He started practicing last week. But like we had talked about, when you have a hamstring injury, you have to be so careful about when you actually feel like you're okay to play.
Right,
If you mess it up again, you restart the whole process again.
right.
Um, so from a fan's perspective, I'm sure you want him back as soon as possible. But at the same time, you want him to come back healthy and not vulnerable to another injury. All right, next game, and God, this one is a just a question mark to me. It's an anomaly. How do the Browns beat the Packers? How? 13-10, super low scoring game. Jordan Love, who has played great these first 2 weeks, comes in and throws less than 200 yards. Didn't have a terrible completion percentage, but threw a touchdown and an interception. And then, of course, that blocked field goal that the Browns were able to come up with sets the Browns up to make a short drive down the field where they will set up a field goal of their own and they take the win. Just craziness. We did not expect this from the Cleveland Browns, and we really didn't expect it from the Packers, who their defense played awesome. We need to acknowledge how good this Packers defense is, especially since the addition of Micah Parsons. But this is the kind of Jordan Love game that I was talking about preseason, where you have these games where he just can't get things going, and he never does, and it ends up hurting them because regardless of how the defense plays, you're not keeping up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, that Browns defense is legit, and going into it, the talks was the Green Bay Packers defense. So knowing that, you would have thought this would be a defensive shootout, and it was. And we saw flashes of Jordan Love that we've seen in previous years, which is concerning if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, but also expected. You and I both talked about how concerning the offense will be without receivers.
Yeah. And Matthew Golden was the leader of this receiving core with 52 yards. Like to see the rookie getting involved, but just unproductive day from the Green Bay Packers offense as a whole. Of course, Jordan Love is going to be the center point of that conversation every single time that they have a poor performance like this. Guy's getting paid $55 million a year, and he has decent wide receivers around him, but he doesn't have one guy that can step up. And now that Jaden Reed's gone, that's even more so the case. Jaden Reed was that number one guy, in my opinion. or the closest thing that the Packers had to it. But now they have to try and figure out who their guy is that's going to step up, and I don't think they know yet. Josh Jacobs even had a terrible day on the ground. Um, he had 16 carries for 30 yards, averaging 1.9 per carry, which says a lot about the offense and the offensive line, but it also says a lot about the Browns defense, like as you uh, kind of hinted at. They have a really solid defense. Joe Flacco didn't even have a good day or on this in this game. He had 142 yards and an interception. It's just the way the ball rolled. If you look at it, the Browns actually came up short on the total yards compared to the Packers. The passing yards was more for the Packers. They did beat the Packers in rushing yards, and just barely beat them out in yards per play. Um, it was a defensive battle. That's what it was, and that's what it comes down to. And when you think about defensive battles, you'd think that the Packers would come out on top regardless of the offense not playing their best, but they really had a piss poor performance, and that's why they lost this game.
Yeah, Miles Garrett looked good, but that whole Mason Graham's proven himself to be a good draft pick. I don't want to pronounce his name wrong. The middle linebacker from UCLA, Swessinger. 10 total tackles, 7 solo. He had a sack and QB hit. Like he was on top of the statistics for that defense. So a lot of names that are stars in this league and will be rising stars in the next few years. Devin Bush, a forgotten name. He's made a good impact. One of the best coverage linebackers in the league. Greg Newsome has made a name for himself as a number 2 corner. One of the best number 2 corners in the league as well. So this defense is really loaded and it just falls under the radar because the offense doesn't play up to par.
Yeah, and you wonder if I think we had this conversation last week. Is Flacco going to get the boot here eventually? Um,
Yeah, man, because like you think about it, you want to have those pieces around a rookie, a good offensive line, a defense, and you keep going. But yeah, yeah,
well, I think you basically covered what I was going to say. Like, do you want to throw your rookies into the fire, or do you keep Joe Flacco in there and kind of use this as a rebuild year? Um,
right. But
but at the same time, I think there is something to be said about throwing your rookies into a difficult situation, um, and allowing them to experience what the NFL is truly like and the hardships that a lot of rookies face early on. I think that's how you become the best version of yourself. Think about guys like, let's just say Josh Allen. He comes in his rookie year, he throws 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. He's running for his life the entire time. He deals with an injury, which obviously we don't hope happens to any of these rookie quarterbacks, but you deal with the hardships and you come back better the next year. You come back better than the previous 2 years in your third year. Um, I think it could go both ways, whether it's a good idea to throw any of those two rookie quarterbacks in. But honestly, if I'm the Browns, I don't know which one I'd want to start. Uh, I really don't. Shador or Dylan Gabriel, and we haven't seen anything from them other than the preseason. Logan, if you were the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, what would you do? Keep Flacco in or try and start one of your rookies?
yeah, I mean, this game is a deciding factor. I feel like it's a little unfair as easy it is for us to say, well, they should have started a rookie from game one based
Mhm.
on these their performances, but this is the proving game that like if it's any time, probably not the next game or the game after that. Maybe looking at your AFC East stretch where you face the Dolphins and then you go at New England at Jets. Maybe that stretch, but like if the time is now, the time's now because this defense is playing great. The offense is proven you just have to play good enough to get a win because the
Mhm.
defense is that good. So they were 0-2 going into this game, and they just proved that every single person in that locker room just got proven something with this win against the Packers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they've picked their heads up a little bit. Will be interesting to see if we see a quarterback change in the next few weeks here. And whether it will be Gabriel or Sanders. I feel like they're both kind of in the same place right now. Um, as, meaning like it could go either way. It
Right.
really who has the better practices. Um, all right, Jets at Buccaneers, and what a thriller this was. We saw the Buccaneers take a substantial lead early on, and then the Jets fight back and fight back and fight back. Buccaneers go to kick a field goal that would have put them up by, I believe, 10, 7 or 9 or 10 points. And Will McDonald jumps the line, blocks the kick, and returns it for a touchdown, giving the Jets a lead of 6. Yes. Or no. Giving the Jets a lead of 2. 2 um, with less than a minute to go in the game. And what happens? Baker Mayfield, for the third week in a row, comes out with less than a minute left. They're down and wins the game for them. I can't say enough about Baker Mayfield and how clutch he's been. This guy knows how to win these games in the 2-minute drill. He's a mastermind of it. He's one of the best that I've seen in the past 5 years at winning these close games. And he's really only had this 3-year stint of being able to, or of being a starting quarterback anywhere. I can't give him enough credit. The offense for the Buccaneers is a little bit banged up now. You already didn't have Chris Godwin, and now you've lost Mike Evans for 3 to 4 weeks, is what they actually said today. Is the expectation. So you're relying on Emeka Ibuka, who is really coming into his own. Doesn't even look like a rookie out there. The guy is incredible at the wide receiver position and already just looks seasoned. The defense, I believe, can be a bit of a wild card for this team. Logan, I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, the defense is a wild card. That's the one question mark on this team, especially going into this year. And you talk about the receiving core, and, Emeka Ibuka is going to be a star in this league. And I feel like wide receiver is one of the easiest positions to watch live and be like, okay, he's a rookie, he's a stud, he's going to be a stud,
Mhm.
and he's playing that position receiver, so it's very clear and obvious, and they need that, especially with Mike Evans upper hamstring issue. We already covered the hamstring. Tough injury, and especially the higher you go where it gets close to your glute, the harder their injury it is. And he was holding that hamstring, and if you remember last year, he dealt with the same thing. So good thing they're getting Godwin back this year, because that will substitute Evans if he doesn't get as many snaps next week with that hamstring. Sterling Shepard, how many times are we going to hear this name come up in the box score and just not get talked about? I feel like this is like the fifth or
That's a
sixth
good
time in the
point.
last couple of years I go on the box score and I see Sterling Shepard had a good game. Like, where's this coming from?
Yeah, I mean, and he's been a deep threat too. I think he averaged like between 15 or 20 yards on 4 catches or something like that. Um, I think he finished with right around 75 yards, maybe 80. Just really good. He comes from the Giants. Again, it's all these Giants players, dude. They leave the team and they perform well. Sterling Shepard did play well on the Giants too. Let's not get that confused. He did play well with the Giants. But just seeing them get shipped off and still be good or become good with other teams is hilarious at times.
All right.
But yeah, I feel like they've got a very deep wide receiver core. So despite not having Mike Evans or Chris Godwin for several weeks now, they still have guys that are going to be able to go out there and perform. Ibuka, like I said, I don't even think of him as a rookie anymore. This guy comes out week in and week out. Even if he doesn't score, he's putting up good yards, and situationally, he's awesome too. I'll get back to that a little bit later in this video. Um, let's move on. Chargers, Broncos. 3-point win for the Chargers in this divisional matchup at home. They held a good lead for a while. Broncos come back, tie the game, and then who was just Justin Herbert down with a few minutes to go, scrambles out of the pocket, avoids a sack, breaks contact, and finds who else but Keenan Allen in the end zone. And what a revival year it's been for Keenan Allen, who many people were thinking, oh yeah, this guy might be done. This guy might
No, not me, not me though.
be getting
Not
too
me.
old. No, man, he's been playing incredible. 65 yards on 7 catches,
Unreal.
averaging 9 yards per catch, and had that super clutch touchdown, which was put in a tight window. So for him to come away with that, uh, not only says good things about the quarterback, but says good things about him as well. And the other guy I want to talk about who has been doubted for the last year or two, Quentin Johnston, man. He he was been hated on for his drops. He was the butt end of every single Chargers joke last year. All the NFL meme pages were clowning him, and he has had a very successful year so far. He hasn't been dropping the ball as much. He's had good games, good yardage. He's getting good averages out of his catches. He's a good deep down the field threat. Um, I think we expected this game to be pretty close. It's a divisional matchup, and both these teams are very solid. Just one quarterback is better than the other right now. I really think that that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That might have been one of the most ridiculous throws I've seen, maybe other than a couple I've seen for Pat Mahomes. But yeah,
Mhm.
Quentin Johnson, kudos to their coaching staff for holding on to him, especially after going through all those drops, because he could have easily have been cut when he was going through all those.
Oh
And now
yeah,
to see him get 80 yards a game through 3 weeks, 3 touchdowns, 17 an average a catch, he's putting up pretty freaking good numbers, and he has a really, really good quarterback to throw it to him.
yeah, absolutely. And Bo Nix for the Broncos didn't have a bad game either. 130, 53 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. J.K. Dobbins had 83 yards rushing. Cortland Sutton had 118 of those 153 yards and had the touchdown. It was a long ball, but I think that's where the numbers get a little bit skewed. Like obviously 153 yards is not a lot to throw. Um, I think that in the first half of this game, they really struggled to move the ball at all. From a passing perspective, they were doing okay in the run game with Dobbins, but to in the first half they just were not able to move the ball through the air, and I think that that is a problem that Bo Nix has faced in the first few of these games. Luckily, their defense is incredible, maybe one of the best defenses in the league, and they can keep them in these games even if Bo Nix starts off slow. Um, but Logan, I want to just what are your thoughts on the Broncos and really the Bo Nix situation? Are you still confident in him?
Yeah, I think I think the Broncos so far are the Baltimore Orioles of the NFL. And and it's frustrating because think about some of these names we talked about. Think about when we were sports journalism students. We were talking about Evan Ingram coming in as a tight end for this team, and through 2 weeks he has 33 yards,
Yeah.
6 targets.
Yep. I
So
drafted him in fantasy. Big mistake.
I haven't heard that name once this year. It's just frustrating, especially knowing the weapons around Bo Nix. Like I feel like a lot of people kind of predicted the Broncos to be that sleeper, that AFC West champion this year, especially how they played last year. But if you really break down the roster outside of Cortland Sutton, there's not a lot of guys to get the ball to, and Cortland Sutton isn't really he'd be a number two receiver on a lot of teams in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think you also can't throw too much disrespect his way. I think he's a very solid wide receiver for the Broncos right now, but he's getting a little bit older. But he still has very good route running ability and can come down with those contested catches. Marvin Mims, we haven't heard too much from this year either. Really was expecting him to have a breakout year. Not so much the case
Me
so far
too.
in this one. Um, but anyway, the Chargers come away with a 3-point win, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens the next time that these two teams face off. Uh, just gonna recap the score of these next few games. Seahawks beat the Saints 44-13. That game was never close to begin with. The Bears win 31-14 over the Cowboys. That one might have been a shock to people, but the Cowboys defense once again failing them. Jerry Jones, you're a loser. Why would you get rid of Micah Parsons? Um, their secondary is just bad anyway.
It's horrible. Did you see that play of Trevon Diggs on Roma Dunze, the coverage?
Yeah.
Did you see that coverage? The hell
Hmm.
was that technique?
Dude, I'm
Who
telling
taught him
you,
that? You ever
Trayvon
see?
Diggs. is good for like 5 interceptions a year, but he can't play man coverage. You can't.
Dude, you know what that reminded me of? Remember that clip of Patrick Ewing on the bench when he's like scolding his players, like,
Mhm.
when have you ever practiced that shot? Have you ever shot that shot before? Why would you ever shoot that?
Yeah.
Like that
It's
just
like saying
reminded
that
me.
to Trayvon.
Why
Yeah.
would you lined up like a receiver and then just I don't even want to talk about it. I would have scored a touchdown on him. I would have put money on it. I would have scored. If he ever came at me with that kind of coverage, I would have cooked Trevon Diggs on a fade route
Yeah.
next game.
It,
It's
it,
horrible. It's bad. The defense is just horrible, man. It's horrible.
it's really, I wouldn't say shocking, but it's just pretty amazing how bad that defense is, and especially the secondary with a guy that two guys. I think Bland was out this week, but um, uh,
I mean,
two guys that are supposed to be all pros, and they're just not living up to the hype. Anyway, Cardinals 49ers. This was a fun game to watch. Defensive shootout in this one. Obviously, for the 49ers, they come away with a 1-point win, but it didn't come without their losses. We talked about the injury bug being a curse for this team, and it hit strikes once again. Nick Bosa out for the season with an ACL tear. Absolutely devastating for them. He was out for a fair portion of last year with other injuries, and now that just 3 weeks into their season, they have lost him entirely. Um, I really did like what I saw from the 49ers defense. The offense wasn't super impressive. Mac Jones, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, did throw for 300 yards about. Um, and the Cardinals finally fall victim to playing an uncomfortable game. They were ahead for a little bit. They get that safety of Mac Jones in the end zone, putting them up 2, and then their defense just falls flat on their face on that last drive, setting up the kick for the game-winning field goal. But very interesting in-division matchup. I really enjoyed watching this one at the end of the 4 o'clock game segment or window there. It was a very fun game to watch.
yeah, I didn't watch this game in particular. I think I want to say I watched the final drive when Andy Pinero put the
Yeah.
game-winning field goal in. Maybe I listened to it. I just didn't get a chance to watch it. I'm very impressed with Ricky Pearsall, though. I feel like I have watched the highlights, a little bit of them, but every time I turn on the highlights, I'm watching Ricky Pearsall highlights, and he's been fun to watch.
Well, he's needed to step up, and he has big time. Him and Juwan Jennings are doing a good job. Mac Jones stepping in there and not playing fantastic football, but being serviceable as a backup while Brock Purdy is dealing with his injury. I think that says something about the Shanahan offense and the system that they've built. People are going to say that Purdy's a system quarterback, and to an extent, I think I would agree. But I think Purdy wins this game by more than a point if he's playing. But regardless, 49ers come away with a win. Their only loss in this game was Nick Bosa, and that's devastating. And so wishing a quick recovery for him, hoping that he will be back next season. Chiefs Giants game was closer than people would have thought for a while. But at the fourth quarter, Chiefs do what they do best, pull away, get a win, 22-9. And then finally, this Monday night football game was an absolute blast. If that 49ers game was fun, this one was fun to watch. They were going back and forth. Whenever the Lions would score, the Ravens would answer right back. Whenever the Ravens would score, the Lions would answer right back. If the Lions went 3-and-out, the Ravens went 3-and-out. It was just a shootout, like Midwest style shootout at noon in the town square type of deal. And I think we got to talk about the Lions again. We saw their week 1 loss to the Green Bay Packers, and a lot of people were questioning whether this team could continue or would continue to be the successful and dominant force that they have been on the offensive and defensive side of the ball without their coordinators. And the last 2 weeks, Dan Campbell has basically thrown a middle finger up at everybody with what this team has been able to produce. Jared Goff throws for 202 yards and has a touchdown. But the real storyline of this game was David Montgomery having maybe his best game ever. 151 yards and 2 touchdowns with a 70-yard run in the third quarter there. That's the stuff you expect to see from Jahmyr Gibbs,
Right.
not from David Montgomery. So hell of a day for him. Really enjoyed watching that. Um, the defenses in both these games were not outstanding, except the Lions did have one really good goal line stand against the Ravens. Where on 4th and goal, they forced Lamar out of the pocket, made him uncomfortable, great coverage in the end zone, and forced him to fumble, ending that drive. And speaking of fumbles, for the third week in a row, Derrick Henry fumbles in the fourth quarter. Man, he just can't catch a break right now. And
A
that
lot
was
of fumbles this week.
oh yeah. And that was a great, great effort by Aiden Hutchinson. I don't know if you remember, Logan, but on that play,
Yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson was going after Lamar Jackson, realized the ball was handed off, and he just doesn't give up on the play. He turns around and goes and knocks that ball free. And that's why Aiden Hutchinson is one of the best defensive ends in the league, is because he is a player that is going to play until the whistle is blown and put his maximum effort into it. This is a guy who's coming off of a season-ending injury, and he's playing like an all-pro once again as if nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about good defenses and bad offenses. How about vice versa? How about a really good offense and a really bad defense in the Baltimore Ravens?
It's really bad.
And they shouldn't, I mean, this defense isn't that bad. Think about the names on this defense: Roquan
Kyle
Smith,
Hamilton,
Kyle
Roquan
Hamilton,
Smith, Marlon
Marlon
Humphrey.
Humphreys. Like, they got guys. You can't, no excuses, man. There's something wrong with either the scheme or these guys are just not matching a certain level of toughness because it's hard to watch. Like, we're watching offenses week in and week out, other than the Browns, march down the throat of this Baltimore Ravens defense, and it's not even close. It's not even like, okay, it's 1st and 10. Like I have faith that we're gonna stop them and it's gonna be 3rd and long and they're gonna punt it. No, it's not. None of that. It's the Detroit Lions are at their own 2 yard line,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm pretty damn sure they're gonna go down 98 yards and score on them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did it in a couple plays. But they did it in slow and methodical, and it just worked. And it was all game, and this is the second time we've seen it in 3 games for the Ravens.
Yeah. So let me take a step back to the Lions defense for a second. I said that they weren't incredible. They weren't. Obviously, when you give up 30 points, you didn't play the best defensive game, but they did sack Lamar Jackson 7 times. That's something to be proud of. Now going back to this Ravens defense, Logan, do you think, as someone who's played football, do you think there is such thing as figuring a team out in their defensive scheme? Maybe not just in a game, but through from last season to this season, because the Ravens had one of the best defenses last season, and now
Oh yeah.
playing like one of the worst.
Oh yeah, and it goes same thing with offense. We've seen it with Mike McDaniel in Miami, and but yeah, in defense, coaches are known to have a base formation, whether it's a 3-4 front, 4-3 front, 3-3-5, whatever it is. They have a base formation. They choose whatever they want to do with that formation, whether they're known for blitzing, stacking five at the line, putting 7, 8 in the box. Like each coach has a certain tendency, but something's getting figured out, man. Like these holes are huge.
Mm.
We're talking about David Montgomery, who isn't known for his speed. He obviously got tracked down, but he's like just wide open lanes, like untouched and cooking.
The
Like
type of runs you'd expect to see from Derrick Henry.
right, and I don't know, man. We're gonna talk about the Ravens when we get to our segment, a little bit with me because I got something on them.
Yeah, and never thought that I would see the Ravens and Chiefs going into a week 3 matchup where both teams are 1-2.
Right.
And one of them is going to walk away 1-3 unless we have a tie, which would be the funniest thing ever. But yeah, speaking